For me, it is like everything coming together. So it is like a bubble of life where you have all plants, all living species, animals, humans, all interacting together and working together actually in this bubble of life. So it brings everything together. So you talk about flood or biodiversity or soil or even any other area, environmental science or nature, they are all part of the ecosystem.
Ecosystems are completely entangled just naturally. So all the different parts of an ecosystem interact with each other. So the soils, the land, the air, the water. And unless we understand those entanglements, it's very difficult to know how we should manage them or what policies we should put in place to manage them sustainably so that they have a long-term future.
So in the final sprint, which is the ecosystem, trying to bring all these together, I thought why not look at a model that actually reflects the entire ecosystem. So it captures the flood, biodiversity and the soil. So I work on an ontological model. This model captures all the aspects of the ecosystem. So you can have different aspects, like look at the structure of an ecosystem, what it's made of. So you've got biotic, which are plants, living things, animals, and abiotic things, which are non-living things like air, water. So how these two interact with each other. Then we also got all the kinds of policies that are put in place to look at environmental issues. So for example, if you have got, let's say, population growth, which is a driving factor for environmental change, it impacts on food requirements, so it increases food requirements. That has an impact on land use for agriculture and also on land scarcity. So all these drives change for making policies because it is impacting the environment. So this kind of stuff have been captured through the model. They are known as scenarios. And then you have got models that environmental scientists use, how they can interpret the data, how they can interpret the whole thing. And we've got also other stuff like ecosystem services. What are the goods provided by an ecosystem? What services are provided that people can make use of? For me, the main challenge was to understand actually the ecosystem itself because it is so huge and so complex. I had to pull out information from various sources, going on the web, looking at papers. Then finally, when you're reading them, you bring them down into a level that you can understand in a condensed form. From that condensed form, then you have to implement the model. So there is a whole process of things and it takes time. So that was the main challenge. So it was basically pulling the information and rendering into a form that is available for visualization.
We've continued to work with lots of primary schools in the area and are trying to develop projects that will be useful to schools who are taking part in the Morecambe Bay curriculum. So this year we have been doing work that pulls together projects across different ecosystems, and we've been thinking about soils and then plants that grow from the soils and then reconnecting with the work that we did about birds. And again, we've been trying to focus on digital naturalists, the idea of using digital skills in combination with other creative activities and outdoor activities to make sense and to make emotional connections to place. We've had involvement from a number of schools in the area, and what's great is that the teachers are continuing with some of these activities beyond the end of the festival.
Entangled Festival, the idea was can we make a festival that is like an ecosystem? So the project over the 5 years has had all these different threads and all these different kind of scientists and researchers from different backgrounds coming together. Working with local communities as well, working with schools. And it was how can we actually, rather than just producing one event, particularly if we'd done an event that was just for academics, for example, it was like how can we actually think of a festival as an ecosystem that has all these different parts that interact.
So there have been artistic performances, there have been schools workshops, there have been self-led activities, and then there have been conversations and inspirational talks that have gone on online. Some of the activities have been in person, in small groups, outdoors. Others have been designed so that people can do them in their own time. We've been really happy with the uptake, with lots of people joining the online activities and many of the in-person activities booked up completely.
Yeah, one thing I've really enjoyed in the festival is our arts commissions. we've reached out to different artists and we had an amazing response, and we finished up commissioning 5 different pieces, from dance through to music and everything in between. And I think artists are able to reach a very different audience from what we're normally able to do as academics.
When there's a challenge that's so huge, like the multiple environmental challenges we're facing, no one discipline can do it alone.
I'm Sarah Hymus, and I made an artist's book, a flexigon of an artist's book for the Conda River, which was based on hypercube flooding research. I think there's this, that's come about through academia, through education, in terms of like separating disciplines, and actually, there is no real distinction. It's just about lenses through which we look at things. So for me, it's one of the pleasures of my work is to just reunite things.
Often with scientific research, it's presented in terms of data and in terms of papers. And I think that what the arts can do is create a situation in which we can inhabit that research. That research can become alive in some way and be shared with other people. And I think to me that's what makes it so exciting, is that this isn't something that is simply observational or something that we read about, but something that becomes tangible and lived.
If you don't have somebody to tell the stories in a way that they're easily communicable to different audiences, then you're not going to get people invested, and it becomes more challenging to make change happen. So I think that having artists work together, like across the boundaries with scientists and technologies, can make a real difference.
For me, as a scientist who is very interdisciplinary, works across many sectors, likes to work with policymakers and people in society, I think it's great to raise this awareness, and the Entanglement Festival is doing a great job of that.
One thing I think the festival's really delivered is a lasting legacy. It's not just been a week-long festival. We've collected together a set of resources that represent many of our findings, addressing many different audiences, and that will exist for a long time to come. It will be on the website, it will be accessible, and that's a fantastic legacy from the team and the work we've carried out.